Good morning. Oh, I'm not hearing anyone. Is that on a problem on my side?
Nope, that's on my side.
Oh,
How are
there
you?
we go. Better now. How are you?
I'm doing all right. Trying to get the stream fired up. Something didn't work right. I was testing something new and I'm going to call it a fail.
Ah, well, my old days as a pre-sales consultant, demo engineer, you never make changes and try new things right before the show.
Well, yeah, I tested it last night, but I think my
Oh,
test is what screwed it up. No, it's going.
oh, okay.
It's going.
Have you tried turning it off and on again? Wait, let me try that again. Have you
Wait.
tried turning it off and on again?
Yes. We have done so.
IT crowd. Best show ever.
Does that work with Holly too?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Good luck finding the button, Jim.
Hey, whoa. Cheers to that.
Have nunchucks. We'll travel.
No, you have a nice, your cup still has the stuff on it. I had to put my sticker on there like Manesh did because it was, oh, actually, can you see it? Oh, there we go. Get up a little higher. The word product coffee now looks like the remnants of some sort of maybe Hebrew hieroglyphics or something. I don't know what it is, but that's all that was left.
Yeah, those.
Yeah, make sure and tell the whole household that things are not dishwasher safe, not just yourself.
Yes.
Oh, yes.
Yes. Well, and
That
next
is-
time we'll make sure that they are dishwasher
Of
safe.
course, of course.
Recommended to me by the rep at the promo leaf company, and they did not work out. So anyway, it's okay. So we will. We've got a kind of a light registration today, so I think we're going to have a really good casual conversation on the discovery process and finding discovery opportunities in the wild. And the idea here is that we may have a formal discovery process and customer interview process that we put in place, but it's not always, for lots of different reasons. We may identify opportunities to learn something out when we're out and about going through our normal everyday lives, and how can we take the best advantage of those. And then in other organizations, some people really don't necessarily have the support to put a formal discovery process in place, or at least to the degree and extent that we sometimes talk about as the ideal. So how can you close the gaps by supplementing with your real world, real life experience to create a better understanding of what's going on out there in the world? So I think it's a pretty fun discussion to have. And we've got a lot of folks in Product Coffee that have some great insights on that. And we'll talk about it and brainstorm some ideas and drink some coffee and talk product stuff. And let's see, I want to welcome everybody who's trickling into the Zoom call as well. Just the way this goes is, for the first little while at least, we'll do some introductions and some casual conversation before we get into our main topic. And if your camera is on, I'll invite you to introduce yourself and tell us who you are and what has your attention right now. But we generally wait for a few more people to get in right now. So to get into the call before we do that. So let's pull up some of our Ask Me Anything questions and see what's hanging out there. Let's see, here we go. Well, that's really focused and targeted.
Sometimes that can be good. Sometimes that can be bad. It depends on, I guess, what the target was.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Oh, this is a good one to talk about while we're waiting on some folks to join in, though. We may not have quite enough people on the call, but I'll still throw it out there. Had a question come in a few weeks ago asking about the traditional steps from idea to release as a product manager. Says an idea brings about, for example, an idea brings around user research and market research, which brings about current company metrics and so on. So if I step that back a little bit and instead of asking about what the traditional steps from idea to release are, because I don't know. I mean, there are certainly some general frameworks to lean on, but I am kind of curious, while we're waiting on a few more people to join, for some perspectives on that. Holly, when you go from opportunity discovery to release, in your experience, what does that process look like? What have been the major steps for you from the time an opportunity emerges and becomes and you become aware of an opportunity at the time it hits the market?
Yeah, thanks, Jason. I think that's a really interesting question. I love that somebody put that out there, because I'm sure everyone has a different take, and I struggle anytime someone does preach something, right, as a this is the one way for us all, because I don't think that's ever the case. But and there's so many frameworks and things, of course, that are out there. But for me, I think the biggest thing, that's why I think I've been super stoked about this whole discovery series, is the discovery process, right? So I think a lot of times that gets shortchanged, and maybe we don't really go through the discovery process in full. And certainly what we're going to focus on, I know, next week, in terms of validating the opportunities, we just kind of jump straight from, oh, we found one, to, let's just go ahead and write some code, right? Like immediately the next conversation, especially, and this can be the trap. It's awesome if you take your engineers with you into the discovery conversation, right? But then they are super jazzed, like in the airport on the way back from the meeting, they are already solutioning, they are trying to write code in their head. And so we didn't do any of the validation. We haven't done anything to really kind of vet out or broaden the edges around what we've thought of, right? We might have a very pointed idea, and it may even be a good idea. It may end up passing all of our validation tests if we were to do all of that, right? But we kind of shortchange that and go straight to solutioning and developing code there. And I think that, to me, is a big problem. And then also just, you talk about release. When I hear release, I kind of always get like that little shimmer of chills, because it's so easy to miss everything that goes into like setting up a successful product launch, right? And it's like, whether you're talking about just a release of a software update or a new product, there are steps there. There's important things that need to happen to be successful from a launch perspective that are very easy to shortchange, because, when we don't always think of it. And two, it's, to be real, I'll own this for myself. All right, this is confession time in a small, hopefully still small, no, I'm just kidding. But a group of friends, right, it's a lot of work. You lay there in bed, it's like 1 a.m, you think of all the things that need to happen for this to be a good launch, and you're just like, fudge. I don't really want to do any of that. I'd rather make fudge. Let's go make fudge instead. And so you do that, right? And so it's like, I think those are kind of the big ones that jumped out at me just when you were first saying that, is the really validating it, right? Which again, we're going to talk about that next week. And how we can do that better. But then how we, and making sure we don't just jump from, I have an idea, to throw a solution in the market and skip the validation. Is this the right idea? Really going through that whole experimentation, validation of the hypotheses kind of thing, right? And then how do we launch this in a way that's beneficial to the world? Because the best idea you have, it still matters how you present it and how it makes it out into the world. And you didn't just, open up the front door and yell, "Oh, that iPhone."
Yeah. Yeah.
Because how would that have gone? Nobody knew what an iPhone was, right?
Right. Absolutely. Cool. Thanks. Anybody else? Let's do one more, and then we'll switch over to our regular introductions round here. So the question that came up was, while we were kind of waiting on a few more people to join, somebody asked, when they registered for the event a couple of weeks ago, they asked what the traditional steps are from idea to release as a product manager. In other words, an idea brings about user research, might bring around user research, then market research, and then company metrics, and so on and so forth. And so the question is, what does it look like in your world to go from idea or opportunity discovery to release or deployment, or to a product or a feature in the market? Does anybody want to kind of share their experience on that? Somebody jump on in here.
Practicing my awkward pause, Jason.
Excellent. Great work.
I don't, yeah. So I think this is an interesting thing, because I think, to Holly's point, there's many ways to get from A to B, and fudge and all the other things in between. So I don't know that there's a true one correct way. I think it's the way that works best for your team. I would tell you from my experience in the consultant space, we don't have the luxury to do, right, we have to do discovery because we have to figure out why we're here, but we don't have the luxury to do long amounts of discovery usually because the client's like, well, when are you going to do the thing? So we have had to find a quick way to get after what's possible, what's going to snag us, and then move right into, getting development in a position where they can build the first valuable thing and then start testing from there. So I think, to me, discovery has never left the game. It just changes, shape. So it's, what's the idea? Why are we here? Okay, here's the idea why we're here. What's the first thing we know about that? It's this. Let's go do that.
Yeah.
And then as soon as we have that done, we're moving on to, but it'd be cooler if it did this too, or if it had this and this. So I think that's something to think about, that. And I know we've been reading a lot of discovery and discovering a lot of discovery in these conversations. And I know last fall we talked through Teresa Torres's model, and I think there's some real opportunity there to bring discovery through the process rather than just stopping once you get your idea. So
yeah,
Absolutely.
I think we're definitely.
Yeah, I just wanted to add, I love what you were just saying there, Allison. And I was grinning to myself because you kind of framed it as in the consultant model, but I think more of us deal with that than don't, because outside of the consultant model, certainly in my very large enterprise experience, it's often the case, what you were saying about, you got your idea, so when are you going to get started, right, is the exact attitude of your executives, your leadership, right? You can have the best artifacts, you can lay out a brilliantly, of course, because obviously it'd be a brilliant plan for how you're going to go from, what Jason's question was, idea to launch, release ultimately, that includes all of the steps, all of the boxes from the pragmatic framework or whatever framework you're choosing to follow, right? You can have all that, and you can walk them through. This is the box we're in. These are the boxes we need to hit, right? But really, their eyes have glazed over, and they're going, so how soon, until we get this out there, right? Or they're questioning. You see the looks where they're just like, well, why do you need to do that? Or my favorite, leaving a meeting, they're like, but so you've already talked to them, right? Like, they think discovery's done because you had one meeting and one conversation, right? It's like, no, it wasn't just let's just sync up with Jim and just, exchange some thoughts in a hallway kind of, or even a big meeting with Jim, right? It's a, now that we've talked to Jim, let's go do some additional things, right? So I love that, you kind of pointed that out, but I just wanted to call out that I think that's true for so many people. And so it's like, how do we, not just pull in, like you said, all those other things about discovery, but how do we also, as we're doing that, almost like educate, right, and edify and bring others along with us on this discovery process, so they can understand that better, understand it is a super valuable thing that we're doing. It also never
leaves the party. Like, that's the other thing. I think we think that there's an on-off switch, and I'm like, it never leaves the party. It maybe just sits in the back seat and waits patiently to be called upon for specific moments. But I think it's always there. And right when we launch something, we've got to then ask, well, did it work? Or oh, wait, everybody did this instead of that. And so, like, that's another opportunity to think about discovery, because that becomes the next thing again. And so it never ends.
Yeah, completely. So we got plenty of people here now. So let's get started with our round of introductions this morning. And since I threw Holly on the spot to begin with to answer the random question from the grab bag, I'll ask Holly to introduce herself first and tell everybody who doesn't know you who you are and who you're with or what you're working on. What has your attention right now?
Awesome. Thank you. I was laughing because I'm like, so I get a pass, right? Since you threw me in there once already, I get a pass on the next go. No, of course not. That's not how this works. So hi, I think probably most on the call know me, but I'm Holly Jewell. I have been a product management executive longer than I want to admit to, leading teams to build some really cool things. I've been lucky enough to do that, and I've obviously been involved on the leadership team here for Product Coffee and Product Camp for also longer than I want to admit to. And let's see, what has my attention right now is trying to look at how you get, well, actually, I'm very passionate about discovery right now because I'm really deep into some discovery. I've got a product idea that I'm trying to vet in the fintech market space, and so I'm really deep into doing that. But something else that has my attention right now is that many of you may know, and there may have been some subtle discussions on Slack, good job guys, about the fact that yesterday was in fact our founder's birthday. And that deserves a call out. So when we go around and do these intros and you're talking about what's top of mind, I would also appreciate it if you would throw in your favorite Jason story. So it could be anything, how you met Jason, something ridiculously awesome he did that you would like to share with the class, or, by ridiculously awesome, obviously hilarious is good. Or just, whatever, something he did that was meaningful to you, changed your world, whatever, just share with the class. So I will jump in and say mine. The reason that many of you know I'm so passionate about Product Camp Atlanta is because I came to my first one back in, what was it, Jason, like 2012, 2013. God help us. I don't know. I had found Product Camp
2012
in San Diego. Yeah, sounds right. That sounds right. The right year. Right when I went to a fintech company, and it was my first big like product management job. And I had tried to tell them when they called me and offered me the job that I didn't know what that was and I couldn't do it. And they convinced me, and of course, lowball my salary based on that. But that's fair. So I had this job, and it was not the fake it till you make it. It was there's not a lot on Google about what I'm supposed to be doing. No one at the company seems to know what I'm supposed to be doing. Other people with the same title are very defensive and won't talk about it. So it's pretty obvious that they don't know what we're supposed to be doing either. So I was feeling I had a lot of early wins and things that we talked about last month on your first 90 days, but it was more accident than intent, right? It was more, I went with confidence and gusto and it worked out well, but I didn't know why. So I was basically, long story, lost. And so I came back from San Diego and I looked up Product Camp Atlanta. So I'm like, I need to learn some stuff. And like, is there one in Atlanta? And I found this guy right here. I found all kinds of things with Jason and Product Camp. And so I came to my first Product Camp Atlanta. And I have to say that just the energy, walking in there, the energy. And when I met Jason, I'll never forget, after that first Product Camp, I think we were at like maybe Fido's or something, sitting around. And it was just the candid, openness. And he said them as just the most basic truths, but things that became fundamental in my product management repertoire, like my tool belt, my weapons. And I learned so many things at that Product Camp from so many great people. We had many great speakers over time, many of people on this call. But John, I know you're one that I've certainly taken some great notes from as well. And I don't know, honestly, backing up to why that matters, I don't know that I would have stuck with product management if it hadn't been for Jason. Truly, I mean that, because I think that I would have just emotionally given up and been like, I may have been successful, but I don't know why, so I'm going to exit this before I blow things up. And it really goes badly. And so I would have skipped off to try and do something else. So there you go. You've either done a good thing or you victimized the world. Congrats. Happy birthday.
Thank you.
I guess the same could be said to your mom, right? You've either done a really great thing or you victimized the world. Goodbye.
Oh, thank you, Holly. That is too cool. I'm speechless. I'm going to just go on and call on somebody else. If you don't know me that well, you don't have to tell a story. Thank you. That's a fun idea. That's pretty neat, Holly. Thank you. Let's see. Let's go to John Mansour. John, say hi.
Happy birthday, my friend.
Thank you.
So
glad to have you back.
Thank you. Nice to be here. So Jason and I go way back to the early days of the TAG Product Management Society. And so Jason, I have stopped aging. You are slowly catching up to me, bud. So you're almost as old as I am right now.
Yep.
So it's interesting how Jason and I, where we met and the connection here. So when I first started Product Manager University, the company back then was called Zigzag Marketing. Okay, back when product management was mostly a marketing function in 2001, okay? So I meet Jason at a TAG product management event, and he had started a company, which was not a product management training company, but an actual, I think it was a web design marketing company, Jason?
Yep, exactly.
Also called Zigzag Marketing. And, it's interesting
Who sued
to see
who?
how...
Sorry, John.
Oh, go ahead.
Oh, I said who sued who?
Neither one of us sued. I think I bought the domain name before he could get it. So
Yep.
But so it's interesting to see how the product management landscape in Atlanta has grown. And Jason, you have been, Tag Product Management Society was on a roll there for a while. And then Jason, you came and started Product Camp, what, 09, 10?
Yep. 09.
It essentially doubled or tripled the size of the product management community in Atlanta. And, now it seems like Product Camp Atlanta and Product Coffee are the product management contingent in Atlanta. Tag Product Management Society, I think, kind of lost its way. They've fallen off the radar. I don't think they're doing much. But anyway, yeah, you have been just so instrumental in building and keeping this community alive, even during the pandemic and starting Product Coffee. So I think on behalf of everyone in the community, thank you for keeping it going. It is not, and Holly and everybody else who's joined the fray, I know how not an easy task it is to keep these things going. So thank you, my friend.
There is a lot to it. And thank you, John. You get credit for really you and a few guys that came along with you for starting that Atlanta Product Management. What was it? Atlanta Product Management Association, and that became Tag Product Management Society. So you were there at the very beginning of the Atlanta product management community. You are the true godfather or grandfather. I'm going to call you grandpa now.
No,
OG sounds way cooler. He's the OG.
The OG. So thank you, John. I appreciate that. And of course, we both rebranded our Zigzag named companies for very similar reasons. I think we both got tired of getting calls from people looking for rolling papers.
And the scariest rolling paper story, I know, the scariest rolling paper story. So in the early days of Zigzag marketing, right, I've become a road warrior. So I'm going through, post 9/11, 2001, they're scanning everything. So when I'm going through airport security, they would see my business card, Zigzag Marketing is my luggage tag. And I remember on one or more occasions, the TSA agent going, "Oh, Zigzag, I know you guys well from the rolling paper days." I'm like, and you're the ones keeping our skies safe. This is not happening.
That's great. That's great. Well, thank you, John. And thank you as always for being part of this. Robert Kinsman, you and I don't know each other too well, so I doubt you have any stories, and that's okay. But why don't you tell everybody who you are and what has your attention these days?
Certainly. It was great talking to you. Thanks for reaching out to me, Jason. That was good to catch up and understand what is going on. And I'm beginning to sort of immerse myself into the wealth of material that you guys are providing, which is fantastic. I'm an old school product manager. I have written MRDs and I've managed stores and things like that. And watched the evolution towards where we are today with Agile and discovery and everything else. And I'm just reading through a post that who did that again? Sorry, Powell put out a post a couple of days ago about a crash course on discovery and product management. And so I'm working my way through all that material, and I see some of the guilty parties on this call, et cetera, as well. So it's fantastic to tap into this knowledge base and get a refresh my understanding of what's going on and how things work and what's working, what's not working. Because it's great to hear the theory, but to actually hear the stories and hear the actual examples of this is how we did this is really helpful.
That's great. Yeah. Thank you. So glad to have you here. You're right. And this is going to be a great discussion on one of the things that I love about what we're able to do here in this forum is we're able to go from the academic to the practical. We can read and study all of the great techniques and things that you ought to be doing for great discovery. But the reality is, in the real world, it never works the way it does in the textbook. And today's discussion is going to be exactly about getting into the real world and making these concepts practical when you may or may not have support in your organization, or may not have the resources that some other product leaders have. So it's a great session for you to be here. I really enjoyed talking to you the other day, and really glad to have you back here today, and looking forward to your insights and thoughts and questions along the way too.
One of the things.
So let's, yeah, go ahead.
One thing I would interested to hearing or discussing later on or somewhere in the process is the age-old problem when the development comes to you and says our stack is out of date. Okay, we have to change some part of the stack. We have to have a new AI engine. We have to new whatever it is, and how you do the discovery process on a piece of technology doesn't actually surface until you many releases further along. But it has to, it's part of the whole process. I'm just how do we understand some things that may not be visible, but may take many iterations to get there. But I'm, understanding how that works. That'd be some insight on that would be great. Thank you.
That's a great question. Let me paraphrase that and make sure that I'm hearing the question the right way. So you're asking, hypothetically, your engineering team has come to you and says, we've got some technical debt that we need to take care of, and this is how we intend to take care of it. And you're asking, I think, how do I apply a discovery process to validate that what they are doing is the right to be doing, especially when it's going to take many iterations to actually implement their solution.
Yeah.
Is that the question?
Yeah, and there may be a divergence in the underlying stack, so you have to keep the existing take existing product stream going and start introducing a new layer underneath or something like that, and validating what's going on underneath it to make sure that the new AI engine is doing what it needs to be doing or whatever the technology is.
Okay. So let's throw that in the mix as you jump in and introduce yourself. And anyone, if you've got some thoughts on that, please raise your virtual hand, even if your camera's not on. I think that's a really interesting tact on this general question of how we do good discovery, how we apply it when the opportunity that we discover is really on the technology side of our business and not so much at least we don't have an obvious call for a new customer opportunity that we're trying to address. We're really addressing existing opportunities, but needing new technology or updated technology in order to do so. I think one thing, Robert, next week, we're going to have a really deep discussion about validation. And I think a lot of that's going to come into play in that discussion. It'll be at 11:30 next Wednesday, 11:30 a.m. Eastern next Wednesday. And we have got Aaron Peace and Josh Colm from Method are going to be here talking about an entire validation approach and process to ensuring that your opportunities are legitimate and that your approach to solving them is valid as well. So, but I think we might have some input on that discussion here as well today. So please, everybody, feel free to jump in on that one. In the meantime, let's switch back over. And Allison, why don't you introduce yourself?
I was like, do I go get coffee? Is he going to call on me?
Survey says if you go get coffee, he will call.
Allison, the struggle is real. I'm like, face camera went on. I can just go sneak real quick and it'll be fine. Good morning, everyone. I'm Allison. I spoke a little bit earlier about the Holly's question or the general question when we hopped on, but product manager. Jason, you and I are almost, I think I'd have to go chase the calendar a little bit. We might be at our 1-year anniversary of knowing each other. And so, right, not the storied experience that Holly has, but I will tell you, it's very, very perfect timing because I was at a place in my career where I didn't know what was next. I didn't think actually product management was going to stick for me, and Jason saved me too. So now it feels a little churchy, and I apologize for that. But I do think this community, the folks that I've met here, the conversations we have, the contributions that Product Coffee has provided to me has allowed me to say, nope, I'm going to stick this out and figure this out because I believe in my core I'm supposed to be here. Sometimes it just takes a moment to figure out what the words are to get you to stay. So I would encourage anybody that if you haven't had a chance to meet Jason, I'm going to just fill up your calendar, but yeah, just hearing you talk on Wednesdays really helps brighten my week, and I really appreciate everything you've done. Product Camp. So when Jason and I first met, I came from a UX background, and I had gone to an unconference format. So I was familiar with unconference, but I didn't realize they made them in product persuasions, and I was like over the moon joyed to hear about Product Camp last year, and so very excited that community is here with us as well. I think that's it. Happy birthday.
We are super. Thank you. Thank you. We are super stoked to have you here too. I am personally super stoked to have you here, and even got so lucky to have you travel to Atlanta to meet with us in person. And that was awesome. So we'll have to get that to happening again.
You can't
So-
steal my quote, Allison, though. I'm the one that says Product Camp is my church. That's on my t-shirt. You can't have it.
No, that definitely, yeah, you can
I'm gonna
have
talk
that
to my
one.
good friend John about how to like protect that because he seems to know
All right,
how
well,
to do
coffee
that.
is
with
my
things.
church then. Coffee could be my church, camp could be your church. How about that?
I think we got time for one more introduction, and then we'll switch over to our program. Let's say hi to Anna McFarland. We hadn't heard from Anna in a little while.
Yes. Hello, everybody.
Hey, Anna.
So I'm Anna McFarland. I'm director over product for Paylocity, which is a HR software. Top of mind for me is really managery type stuff right now. So I'm just introduced yesterday a mentoring program for our product management practice. So I'm in the process of matching mentors to mentees, which is fun and like a puzzle. But then I'm also dealing with some manager employee issues. So, that's kind of unfortunately top of mind for me and not the fun producty stuff at this moment. But that's how it goes. You're in leadership, right?
It is. I'm curious because this is on a theme that I'm pretty passionate about, Anna. When you think about your evolution in your product career and now in the leadership role that you have now, what percentage of your time would you say that you actually spend on producty stuff overall, not in a day, but over the course of a month or even the year, on real product stuff versus administrative management work?
I think it's still pretty healthy. I would almost say like 40%.
Okay.
It feels like a good amount to me. I'm in a lot of strategy calls across the whole product org. So I just have a piece of the product org, but I spend probably 5 hours a week just in strategy calls with other product people from other parts. And so I think that keeps me kind of close to the product stuff. And then I do a lot of work with my own category of like helping them in their discovery and figuring out what to work on and like coaching them through things. So I think just like the work I do with my ICs and then the cross product work that I do really keeps me involved, which is nice.
Yeah, it's really important. So I think too often we see productly, and it's not a uniform thing, but too often we do see product leaders who are excellent product people rise into leadership roles that become increasingly administrative and management positions and further away from the actual product and the process. And so the thing that got you to a leadership role doesn't always lean on that ability to teach and grow people beneath you and guide a larger organization. You end up spending too much time in paperwork. It sounds like you feel like you've got a really good balance in your career. I know a lot of people don't feel that as well. So what would you attribute to being able to keep that? I mean, you talked about some of the things that you're doing that create that balance. Has that been intentional or have you been lucky? How do you think you've been able to keep that balance?
So, I mean, if you asked me a year ago, or I think maybe you even did ask me this a year ago, Jason, my answer was very different because last year I had like an 80-person org reporting to me and I had engineering and product underneath me. And now I only have product reporting to me. And so the focus and the ability to focus on product was probably the biggest change and the thing that's really been there. But I think it's really been all about my leadership, understanding the value of not giving someone too much, and allowing each of the product directors to have a very focused part of the product so that we could still be very involved and also have time to coach our folks. So I just have our talent products. Whereas before I had, not only did I also have engineering under me, I had a larger swath of products under me. And so I think it's just, that's been the biggest change. And it wasn't my change, right? That was leadership realizing that we weren't really focused on product in the right way. And that we really needed to do quite a big organization change to get to the point where we could have better product strategy. We didn't have the best product strategy before, but now we're able to focus there and It was all about leadership, really. Like leaders, my CTO, basically. It was the CTO.
Yeah, gotcha.
I would tend to
Jumping
think
in
if
there to
you're-
say, sorry, go ahead, Randy. I was just gonna say, I love that. And I certainly struggled with that multiple times in my career. And it's painful, right? You guys have probably seen me near tears sometimes. It's like I stopped getting to do any of the fun parts of my job. Like all I do is people management, right? And it's like you get hired away from not just your core competency, whatever that quote is, right? But the thing you love. It's like I own products. I'm the ultimate, accountable person for them and the ever-growing portfolio, but I don't get to actually do anything that's product management. I just spend my time chasing squirrels and doing basically what feels like, the teacher-y stuff at the beginning of class, right? Who's here?
I also do,
sick?
I also separate
Why?
out, I separate out an hour a week to talk to clients no matter what. So it's like, that's like a very purposeful thing that I personally do, that I say, I am going to talk to at least 2 clients every week and kind of block my calendar for that time. So that's, little things like that too, I think help.
That is
favorite.
one habit that is absolutely, it's one of those keystone habits. If you read Charles Duhigg's book, that is absolutely one of those keystone habits that unlocks so many others along the way. And that's fantastic. And that's clearly working for you. So that's great. Thanks for throwing that in there too. Randy, you were going to throw something in there and then we'll switch over to our program. So Randy,
I wanted
introduce
to-
yourself first and then go.
My name is Randy. I've been around the product area in different ways. Never thought of myself as a product person. So basically trying to combine all my backgrounds in process engineering, IT, business, and lately UX and Agile into product. And I guess just so you'd ask what's on your mind. I think when I heard this Discovery series, it got me kind of just really excited. And a book I pulled out was Exposing the Magic of Design by John Kolko, Kolko. Gets kind of theoretical, but really he goes deep into really a lot of, I consider it practical theory. And I would just, if you already wanted to read something about discovery and synthesis, I would recommend it. I think it'll bring up something in what you're doing or to want to do. So that aside, the comment I had for Anna was when you made the comment about I used to be product and technology, now I'm not, now I'm just product. I would tend to think when you have both those under one person or one group, there's a lot of internal conflict. You're asking someone to do 2 things, and you're saying don't think too much about the solution, but when you're over both the solution and the discovery, how can you not think about that at the same time? And and really you should have a healthy, I think debate in discovery and innovation and design is healthy, but if you're debating amongst yourself, you're really debating, and you're not. And
right.
I kind of had something similar where I was doing an organizational design and I was under one group that was whereas I thought I needed to be independent. I wasn't. I didn't really have the courage to tell the director that I really should be independent, because how can I belong to one group and I'm trying to optimize our organizational structure? So again, when you have internal conflict, it just isn't healthy. You got to just try to separate that so you can optimize. So I thought that was an interesting comment, interesting situation for you. So I just want to make that comment.
That is a good one. And I think philosophically, I agree with you. Those 2 functions under the same organization rarely works very well. The exceptions are when you have an exceptional leader that is leading both of those functions. I was fortunate enough to work for a guy named Jeff Browning when I was at Silverpop, and when Silverpop was acquired by IBM, and he was our senior vice president of product development. He owned engineering and product management at the senior level, but he fully delegated product management to the vice president of product management, Jeff Durnovich, who you all know who many of you know from Product Coffee as well. And Jeff really led the product management function, even though Jeff Browning owned it from an accountability and reporting perspective. He did an excellent job of managing those 2 teams in the way that created the right kind of collaboration and debate as needed, and making sure that we had the tools to be successful, and did not weigh in as essentially as the CTO. He didn't weigh in on what to do. He weighed in on the process to make sure that organizationally we were doing the right things. And I think that's the difference between having those functions rolling up to a single-sided, single vision leader. When you have a leader who is focused on the overall process and making sure that you have a good discipline within your organization, that's when it works. But it's a special kind of person to make it work like that. So at least that's my personal experience. So thank you very much. Thanks everybody. And I'm sorry we didn't get to more introductions. We got a lot of people jumping in here today. I'm so glad to have all of you. We've got Brian Huss is here, recently having joined Buzzer. So glad to have you. Congratulations on your new role, Brian. Let's give him a round of applause here.
Oh, thank you. Kind.
Yeah, super excited for that. And let's switch over to our program today. First of all, before we do that, I do just a quick moment to thank all of our sponsors. This weekly event wouldn't be possible without them. And just really quickly, we have Method, who has been leading the sponsorships here at Product Coffee since the very beginning. Jumped in and leaned in, and Method has been really committed to not only developing great products for their clients, but for enriching the product management community. And next week we're going to have a couple of associate directors from Method on the call leading our session. I'll tell you about that a bit more in just a moment, just kind of sharing some of their knowledge and experience with our community as well. And we've also got, I want to thank Genuine Parts Company, who is based here in Atlanta, but has a global presence and is revamping and building their entire product management program in a whole new way. They've got a ton of openings in this job market where there aren't a whole lot of product management roles. Genuine Parts Company is hiring experienced product management professionals that can help them move into a new stage of evolution for the company. You can go to productcoffee.com/GPC to find those listings and apply yourself. And we've also got to thank Sophion, and Sophion joined us this year as well. Go over to acclaimproducts.io to see what they're doing in the product management space to help guide you in collecting your metrics and your discovery insights towards your products. And of course, our good friend John Mansour with Product Management University. John and Holly ran an amazing seminar last week talking about user stories and really getting the crux and the value of your requirements in front of your organization in a really powerful way. John, thank you for your support. So glad to have you here. And finally, of course, featureupvote.com that powers our ideas forum at productcoffee.com/ideas. Go over there and make suggestions for the type of sessions you'd like to see here. Vote on the sessions that you'd like to see, even some that we've done in the past. If you'd like to see them revisited, drop a comment in there. Let us know what you're hearing and check out that software. And if you are looking for a forum to collect ideas from your customers and get your voice of the customer going, check out featureupvote.com. So that's all for our sponsorship announcements this morning. We're running a little bit behind, so I want to switch over into our kind of upcoming events, a little housekeeping. Next week, as I mentioned, we're going to be talking about validating opportunities. And we've got Aaron and Josh from Method who are going to come in. They're going to really talk a lot about the DFV framework: desirability, feasibility, viability, and how you can apply that to look at all the opportunities that you're uncovering to validate which are real, valuable, useful opportunities that customers really want you to solve, and are your solutions really viable in the first place or feasible in the first place. It's going to be a great session with some fantastic leaders in product, UX, and customer experience thinking across the board. This week, is going to be a lot of fun. We're kind of getting back to the roots of our original product coffee format this week with Discovery in the Wild. We're going to do a town hall discussion here. Everybody here is on the panel. You don't have to have your camera on. I would invite you to please turn your camera on so that we can see your smiling face. And it doesn't matter if you're still bleary-eyed and wiping the sand out. I know it's early. We're all here together. We started this during the pandemic. When we couldn't get together in person, and we sit and we drink coffee and we talk product stuff. We're going to be talking today about how you can take how you can perform discovery activities, customer interviews, and capture that and some creative ways to gather customer insights for opportunity discovery, even when you're outside of your normal context, when you're going about your day-to-day life, and how you can make sure you're capturing those opportunities that you discover and making them useful to your organization. So this works even if you don't have a formal discovery program in your portfolio. If you've got some resistance to it in your organization, which we hear a lot, we're going to be talking about how to put these practices into play in real life. And if you want to jump over to our resources page, you can go to productcoffee.com/now. Or more importantly, productcoffee.com/notes. And this notes document is going to be really important today. We're going to be taking notes together as we always do. Jump into Google Docs with us at productcoffee.com/notes and share your insights. Share links to articles or resources or tools that you've found that can help with your discovery in the wild, or that you hear other people talk about and suggest. We do that together, and it's a great way for us to connect. You can put a star on this document and save it in your own Google Drive, or you can print out a PDF of it at the end of the session. This link will be live for a couple more days, and the document will always be there. So you can bookmark the document and go back to it anytime you want. You can add to it. You can gather those additional insights. And that helps us create a collaborative view into what we learn and talk about here today. So that's enough of me talking. Let's get to you. Let's talk about discovery in the wild. And I'll kind of start the conversation and ask folks to jump in on this. But what are some of the challenges that you've experienced in getting a discovery process going in your organization? Holly and Allison talked a little bit at the beginning, and so I want to kind of lay out a couple of challenges, and let's brainstorm and talk about some things that we've seen done to help overcome those challenges and make discovery really practical by taking it out of the organization and into the real world. So let's go. Who's got some challenges? Let me reach over to John. I'm gonna pick on you from Product Management University, and I'm gonna ask you because I know you consult with a lot of different companies, so you've seen a broad range of challenges in discovery processes. I'd love to hear some of the challenges that you've seen along the way.
Yeah, it's funny. I was just getting ready to type something into the chat. I love this discovery in the wild idea because, the analogy to me, it's like free range chicken or wild caught salmon. It's the best kind because there's no predisposition to any other agenda. It's not a hair on fire product issue. It's not a, sales deal on the line. It's not customers browbeating us into doing something to renew their subscription, so on and so forth. And to me, those have always been the most valuable conversations, is just when you happen upon these conversations with customers or people who aren't even customers at a conference or trade show booth or something like that. And you just start having these conversations about their business and what they're trying to do and why they're in the situations they're in. And to me, it's the best kind because it's totally untethered to anything else. And it's the purity of it that I think is where the value lies. And to me, I think the biggest challenge most organizations have when it comes to doing discovery is just finding the time to do it outside of what we do in our normal day-to-day routine as product managers. There's obviously some techniques and ways to do that. I mean, I used to go through my customer success team, and they were my gateway into customers that I wanted to talk to based on whatever direction we were going with the product. but it is just hard to find a time, and it's even harder to get ourselves, shift our mind from what do I need to do to the product to just let me flip the product switch off and just go have a conversation with a customer about what's important to them and why, and what they're trying to do and why they can't get there and where the potholes and speed bumps are. And, as all of you well know, a lot, the reason we could be successful with software is we have a whole bunch of customers across a whole bunch of different industries. They all want to do the same things by and large, but they want to do them for different reasons. And I think the context around why they want to do the same things, which allow us to build a common product, I think that's where the real value comes in, is that context about, why is improving that thing important to healthcare, which is a very different reason than improving that same thing is for retail.
Yep.
And so to me, it's just finding the time to do that and getting access to customers under the right circumstances to just have an unfiltered, unbiased conversation about what's going on in your world.
I think you literally
Yep.
just rocked Jason's world, John. Like,
Totally.
I love it. But I was
I
nodding
killed
along.
his camera. Sorry, man.
Oh, sorry.
We'll figure it out.
I was nodding along so hard with what you're saying, John, because I think my favorite, thing with the whole concept of it is, like you said, the unbiased. You're getting the most unbiased conversation you can have in that scenario, but also just the time. Anyone who knows me knows that, like, it's something I was always, stressed about, is the time to do things, right? And it's like, I've just talked about, to Anna, right? If you're getting further and further away from doing the product management things, it's because it's a time thing, right? So it's like, how do you build these things in, the parts that you love, like customer discovery, customer conversations, like Anna reserves that and make sure she has those, right? But how do you build that in a way that ties into things you're already doing? And, that for me was key, especially, with a portfolio of products, from an NCR perspective that were internal focused. So it was like, how do I need to do more discovery, right? And have intentional discovery, but how do I also take the meetings and interactions I'm already having that obviously overlap with some of those same people, right? Whether you consider them the stakeholders or the customers and the users in that conversation, right? And repurpose them. If you're ending up in a conversation with a customer, for me, an external customer, say about, their ATM for whatever reason, it's usually because something didn't go well, right? But how do you turn that into also a discovery opportunity, right? How can you leverage components of that? And I think, that for me was kind of an aha moment, and had some great wins out of that. So I think, looking for where are those opportunities in the day-to-day is super valuable.
And Brian Huss, I want to go back to something you mentioned earlier, which is the whole discovery and sort of the technical debt thing. Because I think this all ties into this conversation. My perspective on technical debt was always, I always thought features are 1 degree removed from a customer benefit, right? So we add features to the product so customers get some benefit or outcome. The technical debt is 2 degrees removed from customer benefit. And, so I always, had the debate with my engineering teams, and it's like, okay, John, we can add features, but I'm going to have to use duct tape and a Coke can on the platform to get those features, or we can eliminate some of this technical debt and get some things into our platform for the long haul that aren't going to be a house of cards and where we keep putting more and more weight on it that it can't support. And, even though we were doing sort of agile development, we had to take more of a, what I'll call waterfall view of the technical debt and figure out how to stage it into our sprints over the course of time, so that we always had a stable platform that we could continue building features on top of that weren't going to be throwaway or cause, the platform to cave in at some point because of the weight.
Yeah, it's a real challenge. It's probably a whole other product coffee session around how do you measure and schedule technical debt into your into your roadmap. I've always been pretty diligent. I don't just want to have my team say, I'm going to do some tech debt. Tell you when I'm done. Like tie it to like an actual outcome. This screen's going to load X% faster, or this is going to enable us to do. Project A is going to get delayed by 2 weeks, but that'll make us be able to go a lot faster and be a lot more stable on projects B, C, and D. I think is a really important way to look at it. I wanted to also follow up on something Holly said about how you, just kind of how you interact with your customers, especially when they're like internal and and or external. I mean, I'm working in the sports business. I always want to set up the more, call them formal programs, where it's like, I have a panel, I'm doing screener questions, I've got 10 people for my study, I'm working with like a user tester and user interviews, like totally do that. I also want to do things like, hey, Mr. Sports Bar Managers, I'll buy drinks for an hour if you send people over here and look at my prototype. Or, in Holly's example, if it's like internal customers, is like, find out, crash their lunch table, like find out, like just try to meet them where they are and try to, integrate it into your day-to-day processes as best you can. But I definitely think there's room for both the formal and maybe the more informal, methods of doing this.
I had a comment on technical debt. I think organizations are becoming more aware of what the need to address it. I had to do a major one for General Motors where we basically did a release that had no new functionality, but the product, it was for a layered middleware product, which basically, and it was really one of the hardest things I had to sell, because they're saying, what are we getting out of this? And I basically had to say, well, it's more stable. And, this was quite a while ago, but I think companies with, resilience and security, so much stuff that's really not functionality, but yet is very critical in today's world. I think organizations are becoming, you can't, they're not going to write a blank check for tech debt, but I think they're becoming more aware of the value of just addressing things when you can. And I think I think you have those conversations, throughout your interaction, saying, yeah, this is, these are some of the issues here with, share the dirty laundry. But I think if you do that, I think the tech debt becomes much more digestible. But I don't think it's we don't want to talk about it, and we don't know what it is. We don't care. And so you have to hide it.
I think we do now have at least a news story that is going to be beaten until the horse is dead and completely decayed when it comes to tech debt. Southwest Airlines tech debt, ignoring tech debt over the last several years, really bit the entire country and even world hard this holiday season. And that constant investment is important. It's still a prioritization exercise of where do you invest in your tech debt, but it does come due eventually. Tech debt comes due.
I love that, Jason. I was about to jump in and say the same. I was like, well, I think we've got a great example now with Southwest as someone who was stuck in an airport for 10 hours. And I know mine was a small case compared to many, but it was very traumatic. If you know me, there's very little to do in the airport I was in. So I was going a little bonkers, like literally up against glass. Yeah, I love that. And there's a great conversation over in the chat, but just so many things you said, Brian, and Jim as well, to Jason, to your point. And I think everyone's and Randy, the value, right? I think the Southwest one painted the picture of the value could just be that it's the comeuppance is coming, right? You can only kick the can down the road for so far before it's going to come back around for you eventually. I think that if we in product, do a better job, and I was really thinking that, Brian, when you were saying that, and I'll own that for myself, sometimes, when you get in those conversations, it gets combative, right? You have engineering or the support team. I've told stories here many times about a dear friend of mine that was the manager of support that reported into my org, because, the way they laid things out, product was, gods of the world, which is super fun, but also super awful. She was super bad all the time because we had all these defects, we had bugs, we had problems. And it was just, why won't you invest in my thing? And, I had to walk that tightrope and explain the difference between, trying to build product or build things that made us money so we can continue to get paid and have jobs, right? Versus the need to do these things that maybe have been, it's a bug in the software, but it's been there for 25 years. And therefore the value of fixing it is perhaps low. But to the broader point of tech debt, if we make the position of the value if we really are speaking to that, I think then we are better able to make a case, not just to ourselves, but certainly to the broader leadership, to the P&L for the investment. And that's really what it comes down to, right? The reason Southwest didn't do that stuff was somebody at the top didn't understand the value of the sunk cost, the investment in those technical debt, right? Those operational updates, things like that. And you see that a lot, especially in certain industries. Banks are famous for it. I'll call them out that they're terrible about staying current, even on stuff that's like compliant. Like, hey, there's this very big, security vulnerability in Internet Explorer, and you're a financial institution, so you should probably not be asking your software provider to retrofit all of your software to run on something that has a vulnerability. But they do, because the $1 million they want to pay the company to do that is a lot less than their internal projects to do all this technical debt to get the upgrade in that costs them multi-millions. So the trade-offs are painful. Yeah.
Look at Kia. Was it Kia and the other model, which they've got the there's that bug where they could be hacked, and now certain insurance companies aren't insuring them. I mean, again, the case studies are out there, they're becoming more, and they become, with social media, they really grow exponentially. So again, I think organizations are becoming more savvy, and it's still the product manager's job to educate them if they aren't. But I think, again, there's real life situations that they'll be fresh in the memory, which we can leverage. But
and discovery is part of that process, right, Randy? So it's if we're doing discovery right, we use those opportunities, right? Where we're seeing that tech debt, we're having a conversation even internally about tech debt topics, right? How do you tie that into, well, let's go do some discovery on that, right? Let's understand, maybe that support ticket is the opportunity. I think that's what started this, right? For the discovery interaction. And how do you use that to say, is there an opportunity for something within this thing that we're talking about, this tech debt, and to Brian's point and others, right? The value, right? So I think you have to loop it back to the discovery piece there.
Right. I think that's a great bring back. And it also ties into Robert's question earlier in the discussion in our introduction rounds earlier today, is how do you bring the discovery process, in the real world, how do you apply what we're doing in discovery to the concept of tech debt in the first place? And so I think this does all tie in together, but I want to switch over to Allison here as well. Allison, you're I think you had a different direction to think about as well. So why don't you jump in here?
So I don't know if you saw my thinking face show up a couple of times here, but while this conversation was going, I'm like, I see where we're going. I see where we're going. You couldn't have said it any better. I was thinking about Robert's comment earlier. So when we have something, maybe internal, maybe tech debt related, tech stack related, something's got to go. We got to put something new in. There's two pieces to this for me. So I think about that and say, okay, well, how do you advocate for that? And I think we've kind of sussed through that a little bit with the technical debt conversation. But I also want to challenge, like, who gets to own discovery? Like, I think it's a full contact sport. And I think it's not just the product manager's job to say, aha, we must go on a safari for blah, blah. And so, like, can you engage with your designer? Can you engage with your technical team? Can you engage with your, if you have access to internal customers, to say, tell me more about what happens when you try and do this? I think that gets the conversation going and takes the weight off of, oh my gosh, I'm going to have to conduct 6 months worth of research to figure out what we can do here to solve this problem. So I will pause there and let somebody else jump in. But I think, like, who do you think needs to lead that discovery safari?
John, you've got your hand up. Jump in.
I do. And Allison, along the lines of your question, one of my favorite sayings for many years going is, as product management goes, so goes the rest of the organization. So I think the ball is in our court to lead the charge here. And, Jason, back to one of your earlier questions, like, what are some of the challenges of doing discovery? I think one of the other bigger challenges, other than the time to do it, is, I think, I look at discovery in layers. There are layers of discovery, and obviously this is the way we teach it. And I think one of the other challenges is discovery is just it's this whole big ball of stuff that we all know we need to do. And I think, if we can establish that discovery in some sort of a framework or layered structure, to where when we talk to customers, it's a different conversation depending on whether you're talking to a senior executive, a department head, a user, or first line manager. And I think, you know, those layers of discovery, I think the dots have to connect between them. And I think that's one of the other bigger challenges, right? Because as product managers, we don't have access to senior executives in most cases, but we need to know what's on their mind and why, and then sort of take it from there. So I think the other thing that makes this challenging is, you know, how do we layer customer discovery? And I'll say this, product management has to go deeper than all the other customer facing disciplines in terms of discovery. We got to go much deeper, because obviously it goes right down to how we build features. But I think taking it in layers, thinking of it in layers, will help people sort of put context around it and not try to tie, you know, some little feature here. And I see people try to make the leap back up to some executive benefit from a feature here, and that's hard to do without some layers in between. So I guess my long way to ask a question to the group here is, you know, how do you see discovery? Is it just more of a, let's go have a customer conversation and find problems, or do you look at discovery with different parts of the customer in different ways? I'm curious to know how people see that, because I think it feels to me like we put it all into one big lump, which creates a number of inherent challenges. I'm interested to hear what all the practitioners out there have to say.
Allison said she agrees it's a full team effort to experience and conduct it, diverse experience and perspectives. So,
Jerry has his hand up.
Jerry.
Yeah, a couple of things. I was just listening to John, and if we were at a customer experience event, somebody would have said all of the same things he just said. We have to lead. We have to be the advocate for the voice of the customer. And I don't mean that to create competition, but to say that if you have customer experience people in your organization, you will find willing partners, and you can solve the voice of the customer challenge together, because they're probably dealing with the same questions. And second, so I'm building on the theme of in the wild. Obviously, I've got my hat on. Having done too many discoveries so far as I can't remember them all, as a customer experience professional, I think people overcomplicate, to say it in a few words, and they try to create something formal. It can even be a little daunting and off-putting to the client. Like, holy smokes, we can't possibly support a visit of that complexity. And so what ends up happening is, if you have a good relationship, they'll host the visit, they'll quickly turn to you to lead the event. And unfortunately, what people end up doing is, like, instead of sticking with the discovery theme, they default back to what they know, which is things like technical debt, future releases, things like that. And the discovery event quickly falls apart. What I learned to do instead is show me your work. Don't ask about functions, features, jobs to be done. Just say, I'd like to come and sit at your desk for a day. And show me your work. I'm not going to say anything or ask any questions except if I don't understand what you're doing. And just let people show you what they do. And then that does a couple of great things. One is it develops a bond, because you took the time to sit in their area and learn their work. That counts for an awful lot with people. And second, you now have context for the part that you do. So, you know, if the health plan call center employee has to have 15 screens open to take calls, now you know that. Now you see that your application, and this is a real anecdote, now you see that your application is only one of those 15, and it's behind 14 other windows.
Yeah.
And the reality of navigating your offering in the context of real work Oh, by the way, to put in a plug for another discipline, if you have industrial engineers in your organization, they can help you with this as well because they understand workflow and work context. And
Yeah.
I'm going to get back to leading the safari now.
So I've got
Over
a
to you,
couple
Bob.
of I've got a couple of prompts and thoughts, and I think once again, I can't do enough shout outs to Teresa Torres's book, Continuous Discovery Habits, because I think before that book came along, there have been lots of bits and pieces. I know Dan Olson has some great discovery content in the Lean Product Playbook, but this is the first time that I think someone has taken a product team, a modern product approach, and created a tome, a real guidebook for implementing great discovery practices. And even though she talked about continuous discovery, I love that Anna was talking earlier about putting time on her schedule every week to talk to 2 clients. That's pretty amazing and fantastic. I know there are also industries where talking to clients in that way is somewhat challenging. The B2C, a B2C type environment has a completely different approach to speaking with consumers and customers than a B2B environment does. But there are a couple of tools that came out of continuous discovery habits that I find particularly valuable and thought provoking. And I want to throw them out there because there's still some challenges with them. And I wanted to get some creative thoughts on how to put some of these things into play. One is just the notion of understanding what your assumptions are, what it is that you're trying to learn when you're doing discovery. You have a market area and a customer area that you're focused on organizationally. We have a customer that our organization has identified as the priority for us to serve. And within that market, within that customer market, we can go digging for lots of opportunities, but we generally have some direction and some assumptions around where we're going to be able to help. So how do we lean into those existing assumptions and validate them or learn from them? One is just by taking the time to actively document the assumptions and hypotheses that we have. And there's a whole bunch of different ways to do that, but even making a list of assumptions that you're focused on validating right now as a starting place for preparing yourself to conduct impromptu discovery sessions. And when I talk about discovery in the wild, one of the things that I'm really excited about is how I can create effective impromptu discovery sessions when I meet someone. And the other tool that Teresa has talked a lot about in her book is the notion of the interview snapshot. And I'm going to share my screen for just a minute here. Here we go, right there, boom. And this is a template that she talks about, and it's in chapter 5 of Continuous Discovery Habits. And I put a link in the notes document as well. If you haven't read that book, I can't recommend it enough. But in this book, the notion of the interview snapshot is a single page document for you to quickly capture and prompt yourself to remember more details around a conversation and also share your insights out a little bit. And one of the key features that I love about the interview snapshot is if you look in the upper right hand corner, you see some little squares, and they're representative of an experience map. We have an understanding of what our customer's experience is in general terms. We have a desired experience that we want to create in general terms. What we do with this interview snapshot is we reserve a little bit of space on this one pager to map a customer's experience that we just spoke about. So if I take a really academic example, and we're talking about getting from academic to practical, if I take an academic example straight out of the book, is you can ask a customer, how do you shop for jeans? What are your priorities when you're buying a pair of jeans? And a customer will tell you a set of things. They'll say, well, I care about the fit. I care about the price. And so I look at the fit, I look at the colors, but then if you ask, how did you buy tell me about the last pair of jeans that you bought, they're going to give you a different answer. Well, I was on Amazon.com. They came up as a recommendation. It was a brand I liked and a price that I liked, so I bought them. And they couldn't have known whether they fit right or not necessarily. Maybe they've got some trust in the brand, but that experience was different. So mapping the experience that your interview subject, whether it be scheduled, planned, or impromptu, had, and documenting that will start to uncover some insights that you can have in everyday conversations. So I think part of the notion of discovery in the wild is, how do we set up environments, prepare ourselves for conversations where we can have effective impromptu discovery discussions and some insights even when we're not in a formal setting. John, your hand up for a minute, so I'm going to swing over to you, but think about that, and I'd love to hear some insights on that as well.
Thanks, Jason. No, I agree with everything you're saying. And, I love what Teresa's talking about. And Jerry, back to your comment here about the insights you get from just watching users do their job it is invaluable. But I want to go back to something, Holly, you and I talked about last week on our seminar. And I think this is such an opportunity for the product management profession. When we look at how someone, a customer support rep is looking at 15 screens, or another scenario where one of my clients, she said, I made the payroll product manager go to like a half a dozen customer sites and watch how they do payroll. And I think that one of the things that would make our lives easier is we have to understand, I refer to it as the big why. Why is it important to improve payroll or to improve the customer support rep and how they handle a customer inquiry? Because I think we can, in the example of go watch your customers do payroll, right? We can add features that make it easier to do payroll, but if we don't understand what the big why, and in this real world example, it was a lot of companies that have a lot of hourly employees are experimenting with running payroll every day instead of every 2 weeks, right? So I can look at all the little nuances in payroll and see where I can fix some little things. But if I don't understand that maybe I need to completely change how the payroll process is run to make it feasible to run every day, then, my discovery, I might have very incomplete discovery. So I think understanding the big why of why is it even important to focus on the customer service reps 15 screens, or why is it important for someone to understand how you do payroll? And I think that big why provides the context of what we should be doing to the users. And so I think as a profession, and obviously we're product people, I think we are trying to get all these insights just from talking to users. And I don't think you get that big picture from talking to users. I think we have to go beyond the users to find out the big whys. And then that puts the user thing into much better perspective in terms of helping us understand what direction we should go.
To your point, John, when you mentioned product managers go deeper, my note to myself was they also need to go broader. And I think that's what you're saying. Here's your broader. We're understanding a broader context. What's the managers thinking, senior management? What's the industry thinking? What's the world thinking? And again, now is that all possible all the time? No. But I think
that's where the challenge comes in.
We have to
putting ourselves into an environment.
We have to at least make the attempt and let people know that these things matter, because along with going out and finding them, we need to be receptive to people coming to us and saying, hey, by the way, I don't know why this is important, but it may be, maybe for you, here it is.
Yeah.
So again, I think broader and broader is also applicable here.
I hate to jump in, Jerry. I know you've had your hand up much longer, but just to tie right into what John was saying, since I was part of that, I thought of the real big one I just said in the chat. When you said that, John, when we were talking last week to a broader group about this, I walked away from that and went, oh, the best use case, the best example of what you were just saying is actually payments, right? Not to be the payments nerd, but everybody's probably seen something, whether you see it on the internet, your bank's website, about moving money faster, faster payments. The world has been obsessed with payments being faster for at least the last 15 years. And I'm guilty of being right in the thick of that. I've been part of more work councils and the Federal Reserve's office of trying to figure out how to make money move faster in this country than I want to admit, because it's just sunk stupid time. Because we finally asked ourselves, why, right? Why does it matter? Why are we trying to do this? Just to make money go faster so we can have like the triple X moment of the wire actually got there in like 5 minutes and somebody didn't have to get, killed by some gangster in Russia, right? Like, why? And it was funds availability. And the aha moment of, oh, if it's just we want the money to be available in John's account sooner, well, and everyone like, it's just silence in the room. All these overpaid, overpowered people, the heads of the Federal Reserve Bank, we're just all looking at each other like, oh. Because that's literally like, I mean, that's just a piece of paper. We can do that right now. Like, we have a time that we say we make the funds available. We could just change the time. So a new settlement window. So everyone said we just create a new settlement window, and instead of 5 p.m. we make it 2 p.m. Is everyone cool with that? Okay. All right. Gavel. Done. Right. The world changed. That's literally how real-time payments happened. It's just a funds availability window. But the point there is that we weren't asking ourselves the right why. We spent 15 years chasing a lot of stuff, investing billions, I'm sure, of dollars across all the financial institutions involved in this, not to mention the high power, 6-figure salaries plus in the room, right? And we were not chasing the right why. So can't agree more, John. Super important. The why is what matters.
I have a phrase for that, same right page. So often we're just focused on getting everybody on the same page, but it may not be the same right page. And so we're optimizing something that really is the wrong thing to do. And by the time we realize it may be too late, or like you're saying, I mean, did all those senior executives get back the amount of time and salary they spent, facilitating the same wrong page? No. They just said, oh, okay, well, we'll learn next time, or they just shut the hell up. But same right page.
Yeah, we all talked about this last week, that solving the problem, we often find out that it's not really the real problem. I think that's what you're saying, Holly, right?
100%.
I think that's the whole notion of validating your opportunity. And John, you talk a lot about leading with the problem is not necessarily the right approach. It's really about making sure that you're understanding the outcome, the objective, and even extracting another layer from that is, are we even defining the thing that we're trying to solve for in the right way? And that's one of the other things that I love about Teresa's book, is she spends a great deal of time on really laying out an evolved view of problem-based thinking, even in really, we're talking about opportunities as product managers, because not everything is a problem to be solved. Sometimes it's a want. Sometimes it's a desire, and that's not necessarily a problem. Sometimes it's so opportunity is a much more robust term, and then that leads you more quickly to thinking about the outcomes that opportunity can present. Jerry, you've had your hand up for a few minutes, patiently waiting. Jump in here, buddy.
Sure. Two quick things. One, I wanted to piggyback on something you said a while ago, and just say that the research on people self-reporting things through inquiry, as in Q&A, are very bad reporters. However, if you observe their work, they can't tell lies. They can't tell fibs. They're either doing their work or they're not. And you can draw your own conclusions. But if you ask people, tell me about your day. Tell me about the big issues you have. They're going to forget. They're going to go political on you. They're going to not want to say things that will embarrass their boss or get them fired for disloyalty to the company or what have you. You watch them work. There's no barrier there. And then the other thing on the theme of in the wild, I thought what we were going to talk about, and I'd be delighted to share some of the techniques that I've used about how to make this happen in a world that doesn't want you to make it happen. So for example, at least in the B2B context, there are people from organizations going to visit your clients all the time, right? Not necessarily you, but field engineers, customer success people, implementation people, what have you. Find out when they're going and go with them. And you can even tell your client that, oh, they're just here to observe me. And while you're there, it's a little bit of a sleight of hand. While you're there, just say, in order to understand all of what you deal with here at XYZ Corp, we'd like to watch some of your people do their jobs. And I can't remember who pointed out Gemba. If you don't happen to be an industrial engineer or a lean practitioner, look it up. But going to Gemba, going to the workplace, it's a concept that originated in Japanese management. And it's a concept you should be familiar with.
It's just goo by different letters, Yuri. Get out of your building.
Oh,
Stop being fancy.
well, first it was Gemba.
Nothing important happens in the office.
Yes. That's the modern way of saying it. Yes.
So yeah, and you're right, Jerry. Part of the discussion as we framed it here was really intending to go down a path of when it's not practical for you to actually get in and do that contextual observation in the way you want to do, and in the ideal way. What are some other approaches to getting out in the wild? And Faith, you've thrown your hand up a couple of times and taken it down. I want to make sure that you've got an opportunity to jump in here as well. So just jump on in here as well. But we're about to wrap, and I think I really do want to come back around and see and maybe in a subsequent conversation, get into what are some things that you're doing besides that ride along, that contextual inquiry to create opportunities. Having said that, I do want to jump over to Faith and get your insights and input here.
Sure, I'll try to be brief and look forward to that follow-up conversation. I just want to echo what Jerry said. First of all, that I've been at this a long time, and I have not found anything that is more productive from discovery than direct observation in the field. And partly just observing people use existing software, but more importantly, just understanding, as you said, doing that in contextual inquiry, doing some business process analysis, understanding how information flows through the organization, what information do people need, what do they do with it, independent of the technology. It's the single most important thing I've ever found. And to your point about what to do when you can't do that ideal thing, one thing we don't talk about is doing research with using secondary sources. And so I just want to put in a word for that, and maybe it's something we can explore down the line. I do a lot of work with like subscribing to industry newsletters or following what professional associations say. In my world, it's HR, so there's groups for that. And, there's stuff on YouTube. There's all kinds of other ways to learn what's important to actual practitioners by using a whole bunch of secondary sources. And for what it's worth, the point of view of existing customers is not that important if what you want is to grow and get new customers, because your existing customers aren't the people, you want the people who are not buying your product yet. So the point of view of the people who have already bought it might not be the most valuable thing for you to learn. So just a couple thoughts that, run through my head, and maybe we can, look forward to exploring more in later sessions.
Absolutely. So great. Thank you. So with that being said, we've got about 2 minutes until 9 o'clock. So we're going to wrap the call for today. I want to thank everybody for being here and being part of this.
Before you do that,
yes,
Sorry, can I take over?
Yes.
I had something I failed to do in the beginning. So if I can figure out how to share my screen, I will do that. If you were on for the intros were not just talking about ourselves, we're talking about our infamous friend, Jason Brett. Can you guys see my browser window?
Yes.
Awesome. We have somebody who was not able to make the call today, but wanted to send a hi and a hello and all of that shout out. So if I can get this to play. Are you guys hearing the video?
No, we're not hearing it.
We see it, but we can't hear it.
Sorry, say that again.
We can see it, but we can't hear it.
Oh, I don't know how to make it share the audio here, Jason. I'm sharing it.
You'd have to stop sharing, and then when you reshare, there's an advanced tab you have to go to in that modal, and under the advanced, there's a checkbox that says share audio as well.
Oh, that's fascinating. Thank you. Hold on.
Thanks.
Sorry.
I was
Stop
going to point
share.
that out, you know.
And then on the share sound. Oh my God, you're brilliant. Thank you.
Problem.
Oh, and now I have to give it a password. Wow. Okay. Sorry, guys. All right.
Either today. I really wanted to make it, but I'm in Virginia training a client on how to do product better. Jason, I haven't known you that long, but I have been so impressed. The more I learn about you, the more I hear how well respected you are in the product community and beyond. I'm so thankful to have met you, to have met all the wonderful people through this group and through you bringing us all together. You've just done such wonderful things for our industry, our community. You're building community, you're making connections, you're helping people grow in product, an industry that we're all very passionate about, and people like you don't come around too often. So happy birthday, and cheers.
Thank you, Jackie. Thank you, Holly, for that. And thank you, everybody, for being here. That was a really great surprise, Holly. Thank you for pulling that together. Always, I've seen quite a few conversations over the last year or so about. I've been going to a lot of seminars and workshops, and there have been a lot of people really leaning into building a practice out of highlighting other people. And I think that's one of the things I always hope to do with Product Coffee is highlight everyone who joins us, because it's not about me. But I can't tell you, when somebody like Holly does something like that, it's pretty special to have the spotlight shined on you for a minute, and I really appreciate that. And I share that with everybody. Just look for opportunities to tell other people how you value them, because I absolutely I feel very special at the moment. So thank you. So we will be back next week for our session on validating opportunities with Aaron and Josh from Method. It's going to be a great session. It will be at 11:30 a.m. Eastern time. So those on the West Coast can join us as well. And we are really looking forward to seeing y'all back here next week. So have a great week. I will keep the bridge open for a few more minutes. Oh, there's an old school term, a bridge. When have we had a bridge? I'll keep it open for a few more minutes for some wrap up chat and a little bit of after party action. But I'm going to stop the live stream for right now, and we will see you all next week. Take care.